Hey YouTube, Gordon Miller here. Okay, so it's January 2nd, 2020, and I am going to release a variety of content over the next couple of days. One, I'm going to do a video right here, which talks about my wife a little bit more. And then the next couple of videos, 5, 6 videos, are going to be a series on my mentors and what they did for me and what I get from that and things like that. So I think it's a good opportunity. I almost lumped my wife into this because you'll see here in a minute why I consider her a significant influence in my life, and so let's get into that. So the title of the video is how my wife ended up blind, and so technically she inherited a genetic eye disease from both of her parents. Her parents are both carriers, and so when you have a recessive genetic trait and you have both parents as carriers for whatever that genetic disease is, then typically the offspring have a 100% chance of having it. My wife has it and her brother has it. She has retinitis pigmentosa, which is a genetic inherited eye disease that affects your peripheral vision. So instead of macular degeneration, which affects your central vision, this affects your peripheral vision. So everything along the sides and things above and below are more difficult for her. She sees a kind of a narrow slit of things in the world, and that vision that she has is not perfect. So there's some obstacles there for her as well. So to give you an idea, the big E on the top of the eye chart is 2400. So recently her vision was 2400. And when we met, her vision was around 2100, which is kind of the limit for being able to drive a vehicle in the state of Virginia. And so what we did, when I first met her, she had a Pennsylvania license where there is no vision requirement. In Virginia, they require an eye test. And so she took the test and she barely passed at 2100. And but she knew her eyesight was getting worse. She was diagnosed originally at age 18. Her doctor was the world-renowned Elliot Burson, who was the foremost doctor and research on retinitis pigmentosa, and an amazing guy. I had a chance to meet him. We went to Boston to the Mass Eye Institute early in our relationship, and she had not been for about 10 years. So it was an opportunity to go get updated, get reevaluated, and we then continued to see the folks at Mass Eye on an occasional basis. So the problem was diagnosed at age 18 when she had difficulty seeing to drive, and her parents immediately sort of took away the keys. It wasn't really safe for her to drive. She was doing fine. And ironically, when we met, my wife had already been married before, and her husband refused to let her drive, refused to, kind of treated her like someone with a disability. The one thing I've never done is I've never treated my wife like someone with a disability. So for me, she can't drive, or she doesn't drive, but when we met, she did. And she acknowledged that she had always wanted to drive all the way from Virginia, where we lived, all the way to near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where her parents lived, about 6 hours away. And nobody would ever entrust her on a long journey. She wanted to go by herself. It was one thing she wanted to do before she couldn't see it well enough to drive anymore. And so, I had already bought her a vehicle. She had a 97 Isuzu Rodeo that she drove, white, and she loved it. And so she hopped in the vehicle one day, and she drove to Pennsylvania. And she arrived, and her parents were kind of stunned. They were like, "Well, where's Gordon?" And she's like, "Well, he's at home working." And they're like, "Well, who came with you?" "Nobody. I mean, she's like, "I drove myself." And of course, at that point, I think they realized that she was probably 31 at the time. And she had kind of gone through a period of about 20, 23 years where nobody let her do anything, and because they thought it was just too dangerous. And so I didn't feel that way. I felt, hey, if you think you can do it, then go do it. Don't let somebody else's opinion of you limit your ability to do something. And I think it's the same thing in life and business and everything else. So, I encouraged her to do what she felt she wanted to do, and she did it, and she did a great job. So she didn't get lost. She drove right there, found it 6 hours later all by herself, and, worked out well. So, excuse me. Ice cold water in a red Solo cup. So anyway, so the moral of the story for me is that I think it was helpful to have her pursue what was a dream for her. It's a very easy dream to realize. Sure, she could have had an accident. She could have got lost. She could have hit somebody. So it didn't happen, and she was fine. And but that doing that, fulfilling that long time dream was something that was important for her. And in fact, she said too that she always wanted to learn how to drive a manual, and nobody would ever teach her. And so we had a 1995 Mazda Miata, and I took her out to the parking lot at the Corporate Research Center at Virginia Tech and took her around and let her drive, and she did a great job. She learned to drive a stick, and and I think the most memorable driving incident that I have is I had to take my Porsche 911. I had a 96 Carrera 4S that I was taking to the shop in Roanoke, and we were living in Blacksburg, Virginia. It's about 38 miles, and about 15 to 20 miles of that is very windy back roads. And she was driving my 89 BMW 750iL. Now, that's a huge car. I mean, anybody who knows the BMW 7 Series is an enormous vehicle. And these are windy back roads, and I'm driving a Porsche 911. And so I'm enjoying myself through the back roads. And, I look in the rearview mirror, my wife is keeping up. And so, I was having fun enjoying the roads. But she was doing her level best to keep up with me. I didn't expect her to try to keep up, but she was doing a great job. And so she grew up in the mountains of Pennsylvania, driving the back roads there, and she did a great job keeping up with me in the mountains of Virginia. So, I think it was just a great opportunity for her to come into her own on that opportunity, and I think that it was a great example of how she applied herself. So, when she was diagnosed at 18, there was a program that Dr. Burson had that involved massive doses of vitamin A palmitate. And she was not part of the actual study, but she was taking the same drugs as the study was, and was able to maintain a significant amount of useful vision for most of her adult life, from 18 to 31 or 32. When we got together, she was 30. When we met, she was 31, and we knew that we wanted to have kids. And so we got married a year later when she was 32, and we knew that by the time she was 33, we were going to want to be, in a situation where we're going to have kids. And unfortunately, vitamin A palmitate is fatal to any pregnancy. So the kids would have massive birth defects or wouldn't survive the pregnancy, things like that. So my wife had a choice to make. She had been married before, and her first husband did not want kids. I was married before, and my first wife didn't want kids. And so we both wanted kids. It was one of the things that we were very adamant about. And one of the things that really, helped cement the relationship as well. I mean, we both knew we wanted kids. We knew what we were looking for in a partner that we were going to have kids with, and things like that. And so, we decided to have kids, and she had a decision to make. So she would then have to go off the treatment. But having been on the treatment for, close to 15 years, 14 years, she knew that she would have some very rapid acceleration of her vision loss. And unfortunately, that's what happened. And with the first kid, she lost about a third of her useful vision. Then with the next kid, she lost another third. And with the third and final kid, when she turned 40, she lost the remaining third of what is essentially useful vision. She's not totally blind, but she now has very limited useful vision. And so the the thing for me is that the relationship has always provided an interesting set of limitations and opportunities. So because she doesn't drive, the weekends are pretty much reserved for family time. We go shopping together because she doesn't drive, so I have to drive her. I help. We do the shopping. In when we're out to dinner and things like that, it's difficult to navigate your way through the restaurant. So we hold hands, and I've gone through the process of learning how to guide somebody who's blind. So I'm essentially a seeing eye husband, as she likes to call me. But the opportunity for that means that we are in constant sort of physical contact with each other when we're out. She's grabbing onto my arm, or we're holding hands, or things like that. And we also then spend a great deal of our time on the weekends getting stuff done for the family. So what that means is that we have a much stronger relationship when it comes to the family and doing things for the kids and doing things with each other. We've also had a routine for date night every Friday night that we've tried to maintain for most of our married life. Now married 22 years almost, coming up in February. But but understand that the heroic decision that she had to make was, do I want to become a mom enough to lose my vision, knowing that if I stop taking this treatment, I will eventually go completely blind. And she will eventually be completely blind, probably in her 60s, or, she's 53 right now, and I'm 55, so she's 2 years younger than me. So in about 10 years, she should end up completely blind. And she's gone through cane instruction and things like that. And so it's an opportunity to be able to spend the time now kind of getting oriented to what that's like. But my wife cooks dinner, she cleans the house, she helps the kids with their homework. She does all the things that any normal parent would do, except she doesn't drive them to soccer practice. I get the opportunity to do that. But then I get to spend really quality time with my kids. I get to talk to them on the 15, 20-minute drive to soccer practice. And I get to either sit there and wait for them or come back. And I get to talk to them on the 15, 20-minute drive back. And I get to spend more time with my kids and with my wife as a family. And I think that's been a tremendous asset. I mean, somebody asks, why, what's the secret to staying married for 22 years? Well, we depend on each other for a lot of things. I mean, she does all of the stuff at home and takes great care of the kids and the house and things like that. And that leaves me available to focus on work and those kind of things. So, I pretty much control what goes on in my schedule from Monday at 9 a.m. till Friday at 6, where that's then date night. And then after date night, really the family obligations consume a majority of that time from Friday at like 9 p.m. after date night's over, all the way to Sunday or even Monday morning at 9 a.m. And with the exception of things like obligations the kids have and things like that we end up doing. But, I certainly, my wife's not been a mentor to me. She and the kids have been a great influence in making sure that we all do well, because obviously when you have kids, then you want to do well for the sake of the kids. But it's also important because if I made $150,000 a year and she had a job making $100,000 a year, like a lot of couples do, then a couple could easily bring home $250,000 a year, and many couples do, but we don't. I mean, making $200,000 or $250,000 a year is important, because that's just kind of where most couples in that category end up at. And so that puts a lot of emphasis on me working and doing the things that I do to provide for the family and to take care of the house and everything else. So it's been a great division of labor. It's worked out well for me. over the years, and I think it's made us have a closer relationship. I mean, we're best of friends, and we respect the work that each other's doing, and we've always been very supportive and things like that. But so this should be video 99, I believe, so 100 will start the introduction to the new website. We'll talk some more about it. Then 101, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Those videos will feature individual mentors. So I wanted to, I did one previously about how my wife and I met, and so that's been pretty well received. And somebody asked about my wife, is it true that your wife is blind? And how she became blind and things like that. So that's what prompted this video. So I hope it's something that you enjoy. And if there's something else I can do to answer any questions, just put the questions down in the comments. And also, if you have any other ideas for content or any other questions, ask them. Please subscribe and like. And okay, next video.